Welcome back to our live discussion, coming to you right now from the floor of the Washington, D.C. Auto Show. And joining me right now is David Jeans from the American Iron and Steel Institute. Great having you here.
Yes, good to be here, John.
You know, you don't normally associate a steel association with a policy show here in Washington. What's the attraction to this show for you, David?
Well, actually, John, that's an excellent question. The policy issues clearly impact industry at multiple levels, and clearly the steel industry is one of those industries, and a very important customer is the automotive industry. And so we need to be paying attention both to what is going on, if you will, on the Hill, as well as once the Hill has taken action, what the implications are of that on the automotive industry.
Well, David, as you look at what's going on the Hill, what's going on, and specifically what is the AHSS really concentrating on as far as legislation goes that might impact the auto industry?
Well, John, the thing that probably is the most compelling issue for us to stay focused on is the whole climate change issue. And of course that can manifest itself in a number of different ways. From the steel industry perspective, obviously we look at it from the manufacturing side of steel. From the market side, however, we look at how our products can be brought to the marketplace to assist in bringing steel solutions, helping our customers to both address the same environmental type issues as it impacts their design, and ultimately makes us more cost effective in producing the steel and bringing them results.
So you're looking at it both as how the steel may go into the cars and in just making the steel in the first place?
Yes. You know, it probably goes without saying to those of us in the industry, but it's worth repeating for those who are not as close to it. Steel is a very important product when it comes to the automobile today. You know, a couple of facts. One is, first off, the total steel produced, about 25% of that ultimately ends up in the automotive market. And in addition to that, it's a very high quality product, so it's one that the industry takes great pride in producing. The second fact is today's cars typically have about 60% content, steel content. Steel. Yes. And you know, when you look at the average car, when you park it at the curb, out of that total weight on the ground, 60% of that is steel. And again, there are a few people who perhaps connect steel's importance to the vehicle today. But it does a lot of things, including you know, providing the manufacturability, the performance, and many of the attributes you're looking for in the car today, in addition to the fuel economy.
Of course, most people think steel, heavy, bad. You know, we want lightweight. I'm sure there's a lot of things that the steel industry is looking at as to how to make steel lighter or use it in a way that's not as heavy.
Yeah. Absolutely, John. You know, actually, the steels that are being used today, and I think you saw the Ford announcement the other day when they were recognized as the car of the year. One of their factoids was 50% of that vehicle was made out of advanced high-strength steels. And it's those advanced high-strength steels that, quite frankly, have totally redefined, if you will, the material agenda in many of the OEMs today. The steels of the past, what they could do, how they did it, and how you use them, achieved one objective, and that was suitable for that period of time. But we had to get very serious about it 10 years ago when there were a lot of challenges coming to the auto industry. And one of those basically suggested that the future car just couldn't be made out of steel because we couldn't achieve those. We now have a whole new series of steels. We call them advanced high-strength steels. And they're getting extensive use in the car today. And they represent probably the major portion of what we consider to be the new growth material in today's vehicles.
And the idea being with high-strength steel, it's stronger, so you can use thinner gauge, so that's how you get the lightweight. Is that it primarily?
Thinner gauge, and you know, not just the material itself, but looking into what we would call advanced vehicle concepts. And it's very appropriate being here on the advanced technology roadmap side of the shop here, that we clearly look at not just the material itself, but how that material is going to be formed and fashioned into making the vehicle. So you get into laser welding, you get into tailor welded blanks, you get into hydroforming, all technologies that take the redundancy out of the steel fabrication and just put the metal where you need it.
That's a great point, that manufacturing advances have allowed steel to stay in the game and be lighter weight.
Oh, absolutely, John. You know, that's probably one of the things that perhaps best redefined our whole agenda as an industry looking at the automotive market a little over a decade ago is we really needed to understand what was being asked of the auto companies and ultimately what was downstream in terms of where they were going to be going to achieve those objectives. And if we just sat back here as a material supplier just delivering coils every week, we'd miss the whole message.
You'd have been out of the business a long time ago.
We've been out of the business, that's right. So looking at where they were going and their R&D, all their advanced material studies, and then ultimately what they were asking of those advanced materials, and we determined that steel could be modified to become one of those advanced materials, and I'm proud to say we're here today saying we've achieved that. But I'd also be quick to say that we can't, if you will, rest on our laurels. We really have to be continually looking to the future. And so we've got a project today we're doing jointly through an international consortium, the World Auto Steel Group, which we helped establish a few years back. And through that group, we're looking at what we call the Future Steel Vehicle Program. And that's looking at advanced hybrids, it's looking at hydrogen fuel and what that means to the vehicle structure, and then trying to anticipate, if you will, even what the future safety requirements are going to be, that obviously the steel structure.
So you're preparing for the future with all the legislation that might be coming out of this town.
Yeah. And I think it's important because it changes the dialect. When you look at what's coming out of this town, ultimately in the automotive market it gets translated into CAFE, corporate average fuel economy, and that largely from a consumer perspective tells you how many miles per gallon you're going to get. It also has emissions and the other component, if you will, but that's basically the bottom line. And one of the things that we're looking at, working with the OEMs today to achieve the CAFE that's in front of them, and there's a pretty stiff mandate to do something pretty quick. And we think we still have opportunities to maximize the use of the current technologies to optimize them, and yet we can't be silly enough to think that's the answer. And so we're looking at another generation of steels, advanced high-strength steels, and those are things that the mills are going to have to examine from a mill perspective and determine what their capabilities are and capacities are and what the metallurgical properties are. And eventually we'll be in a position to take this whole vehicle design to the next level using steels. Very
interesting. We've got some questions from the chat room here that's coming in. John Farrow from Westchester, Pennsylvania wants to know, do you see the repair costs rising with increased use of high-strength steel? And also, how do you pull a unibody if the steel you're pulling is stronger than the steel you're clamping the car to the frame with?
Well, those are some pretty practical, questions from a user's perspective. First off, you do have to be smart about the use of advanced high-strength steels, and when you have a collision repair, there's a fair amount of information that's out there now that looks at that. We spend time working with the insurance industry to look at the repairing and repairability, when you can fix a component versus when you have to replace a component. We also look at it, if you will, from the life safety perspective, and that is, you get into a crash circumstance, your most concern is the life, the safety and health of the occupants. And so we've actually had to work with the fire service folks, the EMTs, to determine what kind of jaws of life are needed. The conventional capacity tools do not do the job, so you do have to be smart and recognize that there are new things going in. But they're challenged in many other ways with the new safety criteria and airbags and many of the new electronics and the use of a lot of other advanced technology components. So we're part of that mix. We're providing a new advanced technology, and we need to be smart about helping those who are using it and how they work with it.
Real good. Well, David Jeans, thanks so much for coming in and bringing us up to speed with what's going on.
Hey,
not just with steel, but how you're working here in Washington to make that happen too.
My pleasure. It's been a real fun, and we think in many ways a real success story, and we're proud to be part of it. So
real good. Thank you much,
John.
David.
Good.